So for years, I believe, India, we are only focused towards the metro cities driven startups.
As to who are the startups and who are the entrepreneurs.
So what are the biggest challenges they face? Is it capital, infrastructure, mindset?
Some new opportunities, some new innovations, some new ideas. That every startup is a business, but every business is not a startup.
Welcome and namaste, everyone. Are the startups limited to the metro cities or is the dynamic changing? Welcome to today's podcast. From Bharat, not just the metros, the rise of India's next startup wave. For over a decade, this startup story was written in a handful of metro cities. But today, that narrative is changing. From Indore to Coimbatore, Jaipur to Surat, founders are building ambitious startups with lower bun, stronger unit economics, and deeper local insight. In today's episode, we will explore the driving force behind the startups, the challenges they face, the opportunities they unlock, and whether the next generation unicorns will be from Bharat, not just the metros. Welcome. Today I'm your host Saloni Vakharia and meet our guest Mr. Utpal Doshi. Let's dive in. So hello, for our audience, can you please share a little bit about yourself?
Sure, Saloni. First, thank you very much for inviting me to this podcast. For the audience, a very quick summary about myself. I'm a chartered accountant by qualification, but so fascinated with the startup ecosystem that I decided to leave my job and jump into the startup ecosystem fully. But being an investor, I am not an entrepreneur. I've started investing in startups way back in 2015. Created my own portfolio, but then also realized, what startups are looking at or what startups are facing as a challenge. My major focus is right now on tier 2, tier 3 cities. And, as an industry, I'm more keen on exploring any opportunity with good startup founders. So I think so. Here I am in front of you and happy to discuss, anything that you have.
Thank you so much. That was quite impressive. So, for the first question, here we go. So, for years, I believe, India, we are only focused towards the metro cities driven startups. And now, slowly and gradually, we are moving towards the tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So, can you please share your insight? Like, what is the driving force behind it?
Sure. So I think so. Let's just first deep dive as to who are the startups and who are the entrepreneurs. Startups and entrepreneurs are people who are trying to identify some new opportunities, some new innovations, some new ideas. And honestly, I have never believed that it is only restricted to metro. Not now, not in past, and not in future. The opportunities and entrepreneurs are everywhere in every corner of India. The only thing is that they have to realize the potential, but simultaneously, we also, as an investor, need to realize this potential. It is now amplified. My take is going forward, the startup ecosystem will be dominated by Bharat.
Yes, definitely. So, if I may know that if the shift is structural and long term, or is this a temporary phenomenon?
Well, I believe it's not a temporary phenomena, and I have obvious reasons for that. It's a structural shift. People from tier 2, tier 3, and I don't want to keep calling it tier 2, tier 3. It's the Bharat, and it's the next Bharat, which is emerging right now. People have started realizing that the potential and talent is not just in metros. The structures are shifting. Uh, if I have to say, people are now coming out with new ideas, new innovation, and that is a structural shift coming from metro. Not just metro, but the Bharat. All innovations, all technology, all ideas, be it services, be it product, be it manufacturing, anything and everything is now coming from Bharat. As an investor, I can only say that I see a biggest and largest potential. It's a real long term structural change which has happened and which is going to keep startups rolling from Bharat going forward.
Wow, I really like that line when you said it's not just tier 2 and tier 3, it's the Bharat.
Absolutely.
Well, now I know that it's not tier 2, tier 3, but In your view, which tier 2 and tier 3 cities in Gujarat specifically are emerging and what's driving their momentum?
Being a Gujarati, I can always say that, the business is in our blood. We always think beyond the normal, the routine. And my most important narrative around a startup or an innovation is I strongly believe that every startup is a business, but every business is not a startup. So, anyone and everyone who are thinking about new, first thing has to be realized that are they doing a business? Are they doing a startup? In Gujarat, specifically, being an entrepreneur's hub, I have seen multiple entrepreneurs doing a business since centuries, since years, evolve themselves as a true set of entrepreneurs. But what is happening now is the shift that we are discussing right now. That's called startups. That's called innovation. That's called some new products, some new ideas. This is a new generation, and I don't want to just restrict by saying it's a new generation. People of every age are jumping into this ecosystem. So if I have to really say that, okay, fine, any particular city, I will not say that any particular city, but in my observation, I have seen cities like Ahmedabad, Surat. I'm seeing Rajkot also as a emerging. And why I'm saying Rajkot? Because it's a hub for manufacturing. Anyone who understands this manufacturing and the precision engineering is going to be the key going forward, given that government of India has also put immense focus on manufacturing, making India a manufacturing hub. So I've just given you a few names, but does that mean that those are the only places? No. Going forward, we may see, all the places across Gujarat coming out with some kind of a new ideas and innovation in the form of startups.
How? So, moving on, what advantages do founders have in a smaller cities compared to the bigger and the metro cities?
Okay, so let's look at. I think so. This is a very interesting question, and it's really an eye opener also for me. Look at Bharat versus look at Metro. Let's just differentiate that part of it. You will see a lot of people moving into metros to identify, better life, a good job. But what true potential lives is the largest consumer base, which is still living in Bharat. Now, if I have to really translate that in terms of opportunities, availability of talent, raw talent, entrepreneurial mindset, uh, cost, obviously, because that's something which is driving all the startups. If I multiply all this thing and put that, who's at a biggest advantage, I will say it's Bharat versus metros. And these are the advantages which are going to drive the startups, not now, but it will help them to grow at a much faster pace as compared to metros. I I don't deny that the startups in metros do get a quicker attention of investors because most of the investors are also sitting in metros. However, what is missing, and I just want to couple this particular thing with what is missing. We do have entrepreneurs in every cities in Bharat, every corner of Bharat. They are focused on their own business. They have to realize this potential that there is an upcoming trend of innovation which is happening and which can disrupt their own business. Now, if that being the case, then what does this startup need is also the kind of attention, kind of support from existing entrepreneurs. I think so. If that is given to startup founders, we are seeing much more vibrant startup economy emerging from Bharat as compared to metros. That's my view.
Lovely. Like, I love the idea of how you are not, mentioning smaller cities and just concerned about the whole nation. That's a really nice perspective.
Thanks. Thanks. I think so. We need to understand, I keep saying this thing that I don't see metro as the only hub. And innovations or ideas are not only restricted to people or the founders who are sitting in metros. These are the things which are coming up from Bharat. They are very conscious about what they are doing, but simultaneously, the word that we have heard so many times called jugad.
Yes.
They know the jugad.
Hmm.
This is how they are growing rapidly. At the initial stage, probably the speed will be, slow. But the moment they get, support from investors, they are going to amplify their growth and they are going to grow up. So, probably when you have introduced yourself, that next set of unicorns, can it come from Bharat? My take is it can certainly come from Bharat.
Nice. So we talked about advantages. Coming to the challenges that they face. So, what are the biggest challenges they face? Is it capital, infrastructure, mindset, or capital?
Saloni, let's just put the advantages as a disadvantage. You're saying talent? Yes, talent in abundance. But do you have the right kind of a talent? Again, the answer is yes, but it's in a raw form. You have to really nurture that talent. And that's basically where the startup founders are seeing the challenge. Second, in terms of capital, as I mentioned earlier, also investors are focused on metros. They're focusing on something which is coming out from metros. They are not really looking beyond metros. Now, this is creating the second layer of challenge in terms of capital, and that's the reason I said that investors or the entrepreneurs, the large scale businessmen, should support the startup ecosystem in Bharat. This is something which is very important. The third, infrastructure. I don't think so. Government is now putting every possible action, taking every possible step to improve the infrastructure in Bharat. I don't see that as a challenge. Mindset, I've never believed that there is a challenge in mindset. I think so. Most importantly, there are two challenges that they are going to face and they are currently facing is one, talent, and second and most important is capital. If these two support are given, government is taking its own action. They are also introducing various incentives, various schemes from for startup founders. While the startup founders are availing that, but does it mean that that's enough? That's not enough. And that's where I'm saying that capital from investors, supporters from Bharat itself can move and support the startup founders. I think so. If this is sorted out, I don't see there are any kind of a challenge, but everything will turn into advantages.
Definitely. And when you say that talent could be, from anywhere, it is not limited to a boundary.
Absolutely.
So that is rightly said.
Absolutely.
So when you talk about support, the government schemes, the universities, I really want to know, is the local ecosystem strong enough to support these new founders? How about the mentors, incubators, universities, the networking, the government schemes? If you can throw some light on this.
Sure. So as I mentioned, I think so. Government is taking its own step in supporting all the startup entrepreneurs, startup founders. What I have seen, and I'm really happy to see this kind of a shift, is what is happening in academia and universities. I have seen universities are now coming up with incubation programs. They're coming out with some education programs. They're coming out with some kind of, startup events. And I have been part of such startup events in Rajkot, not just in Rajkot, at various places. So while I've been a frequent visitor to Rajkot, so that's obviously the first name that is coming up. But this is something which is happening across. All these universities are now supporting startup founders or startup ideas through incubation, through guidance, through mentorships. But those mentorships are, imagine a person like me, who's staying in metro and coming to Rajkot for 3 days or 4 days. I'll not be in a position to accomplish, what these academies are looking at. The real support is going to come from within Bharat too. And that's where my biggest thing is that, okay, fine, let's just look at it. Government is doing its thing. Academia, universities are also doing their thing. Investors have started. In fact, that's one thing, let me just say, investors have also changed their mindset. They have started believing that it's not just the metros, but you have to look beyond metros. This is where their attention is also coming. What is now missing is only the local support in terms of local entrepreneurs. If you have people, if imagine a startup founder facing some kind of a challenge and he approaches a local entrepreneur, if the local entrepreneur is able to provide support in terms of a mentorship, it works very well, because then that kind of a mentorship is available 24 by 7, as compared to somebody who's staying away and who has a limited time availability for mentorship. But again, I'm reiterating, everything is falling in place, and that's the reason I'm more and more optimistic about startup ecosystem in Bharat as compared to metros.
Very true. As you said, like just talent is not enough. Right support, right sources, everything is that crucial.
Absolutely.
So, from an investor lens, is there a location bias against the non-metro cities?
Saloni, I'll be very honest. The answer is true. You'll be surprised, but the answer is true. And I'll tell you why. Metros, I know. Metros events are happening, promotions are happening. Who are the startup ecosystem, who are the startup ecosystem supporters. But when it comes to Bharat, imagine I'm coming to a small city. Now, I'm in search of talent, in search of ideas. But do they get a platform to showcase themselves? So think about something like Indore, think something like Chandigarh, think something like Ahmedabad, Surat, Rajkot. Unless and until some such kind of programs or events are created and investors are informed that, hey, look at it, there is a talent, there are startups, why don't you come here, just look at them, and if you believe, please support them. But this is something which is creating again a bias, because I know certain cities only where such kind of a thing.
Right.
What my belief is that if this is the case, then bias will continue, because these are the places where the startup events are organized.
Right.
They should actually identify which are the hidden talents across other small cities, small towns, get them over there, give them the platform, and then showcase them to the investors. If that happens, then it's not just again a location bias, because I may be attending an event in Ahmedabad, but the startup which may belongs to Amreli, or which may belong to any other place, any small village or small town, can certainly catch my attention as an investor, and probably get all the supports, including capital. So, as I mentioned, bias will be there, but bias will be to the places where such events are organized, but not really biased towards that. The startup entrepreneurs are only coming from, Ahmedabad, Indore, or Chandigarh. It's about the place. So, it's a location bias and not vis a vis startup founders bias. That's my take on it.
It's like a sad reality, but
I'll not say it's a sad reality. I
Hmm.
think so. It's more about understanding that for you to create such kind of a programs in every small towns, villages, and cities is not possible.
Yes.
We have to accept that fact.
Yes.
But the most important, those people who are organizing such kind of an event should just go out and circulate that such kind of events are happening,
Correct.
invite talents across,
Yes.
and then showcase. I think so. This is going to be a perfect synergy, which actually creates obviously a location bias, but then the talents, as I mentioned, is available across, and investors are looking at for such talent, such founders as their next set of investments.
Very true. So creating awareness, I think, is
Absolutely.
crucial.
Absolutely. Creating and showcasing the talent.
Right. So talking about founders, are these tier 2, tier 3 founders more capital efficient or conservative in scaling?
The answer is, both the questions have the same answer. What we have discussed, that what is a problem that these startup founders are facing is the capital. Now, a lack of capital can certainly push you to being more conservative. But what I have really observed is the jugaad is what is the buzzword in Bharat. These founders know that they want to grow, but capital is a issue. Now, having said that, they are finding some alternative, some innovative way to support themselves, to support their innovation. So the answer lies together. It's an interchangeable answer. Should I say that they are capital efficient? Yes, they are capital efficient because they have figured out the way how to grow without much of the capital. But simultaneously, are they conservative? Yes, they are very much conservative. They consider each rupee very important. And to that extent, they are thinking ways and means of saving that so that they can actually create a runway till the time they actually get a support from investors. A lot of them are still, surviving on government support, government grant, and are actually looking towards investor. So till the time, it's a matter of survival. So till the time you don't have sufficient capital, you have to become conservative, and that obviously turns into a capital efficient nature. I like this thing. My urge to the world out there, the world full of investors who are looking at such innovation, is to support them because their capital requirement is not large. Uh, we believe as an investor that the kind of money that they are looking at is too much. But if you really deep dive, and I'm not saying that you have to support each and every entrepreneur, I'll be very blunt about it. I am investor. I have invested in multiple, but I don't invest in every next one. You have to understand investor mindset. They are looking at for right kind of startup entrepreneurs, right kind of a talent, right kind of a idea, which they also believe can turn out to be something bigger. And as an investor, my obvious expectation is my return on investment. So if I'm investing money, I'm investing money in the right kind of a talent, right kind of idea. It has to work out for me. To demonstrate that, the founders also will have to understand and change their mindset. Don't follow something which is a done kind of a thing. You have to be innovative. And when I say innovation is not in terms of every new thing that you have to keep developing. There are certain businesses, there are certain ideas which has a very big market. So even if there are 100 players, you being in 101, that is perfectly fine. But then again, the question of whether it's a business or whether it's a startup will trigger. And that question will be from investors. So I think so. All this put together is actually driving the mindset of startup founders. And that's basically creating both the things that you have asked. Are they capital efficient or they are conservative? The answer lies over there.
Lovely. I mean, I'm going to take this as a takeaway, the word jugaad. I mean, we have been doing it, since a very long time, but, applying it in the professional and the business life is another game.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, it's not just that, I see this word jugaad. Jugaad has been a word since long.
Yes,
It's more amplified because of the word commonly being used
exactly.
across.
Yes.
And jugaad is not you in your household also. Let's say any housewife
Yes.
who's also working on something is also doing jugaad.
I think they have invented these words, isn't it?
Absolutely. I believe, it's something which is coming from household.
Exactly.
But that household has now transformed it into for a startup founders. And they are also implementing this by creating some kind of pluses and minuses to ensure that they keep running.
I think the question which really, tops up every mind is that is it possible to build and scale these startups into a global and a national startup from and being headquartered in a tier 2 or tier 3 city?
Saloni, why not? My question is why not? In fact, having invested in such startups who are domiciled and headquartered out of Bharat, I believe I have a right sense around it. And I want to couple it with the kind of investments that I have seen, or the founders with whom I'm working. Uh, think about a semiconductor chip manufacturing foundry, unheard of in India. I'm working with the founder, and I have invested in that startup, which is coming out of Rajkot. Imagine a foundry, semiconductor foundry from Rajkot. Imagine a drone startup coming out from Bihar, Patna, and growing rapidly. Imagine a consumer startup coming out of Surat, again ramping up the operation. Imagine something which is happening from places like Hubli, Dharwad. You see the talent. Are they really? And I just want to have one more example about this uh, startup, which is into your digital VFX. Okay.
Right.
Out of Hubli. And last time, I want to give this example because when I was in Hubli, they actually presented what they have done for the movie Lego. The Lego movie was partly, created by them using their VFX.
Wow.
Now, I was really taken back that, something which can be considered to be a domain of, high technology companies. I've seen such kind of a technology and such kind of a founder using technology out there. So I will not be surprised, and I am not surprised that these startups sitting in Bharat, these startups sitting and headquartered in tier 2, tier 3 cities are creating waves not just nationally but internationally. And I really look forward to more and more such startups, coming and headquartered over there because they have everything. They have talent, they have ideas, they have innovation, and they know that they can scale.
Wow, that's really amusing. I mean, every day in your life must be so exciting to learn all of these new startups coming from everywhere.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I look forward to means I look forward to ideas, but simultaneously I'm very cautious about it. As I mentioned, I don't want founders to replicate the done idea. When you are
Right.
going to chase somebody who has created some kind of a successful model, and if you keep replicating the same by adding, one or two new kind of a narrative or some new changes,
Hmm.
it's not the right way. Come out with something which really solves real time purpose or real life problem, or imagine you are creating some new innovation. Work towards that. That's where you are going to attract the attention, and that's where you can actually grow globally or nationally rather than chasing something. Because see, it's again a mindset, right? One is basically that you want to chase something which is very easy to do, and something which is very difficult you try to avoid. But something which is difficult or something which is more innovative is where you will get the maximum mileage as compared to a replicated one. A replicated one will have a life. You may probably see, and this is what we are seeing.
Mhm.
You must have seen the news article last year. Lot of startups shut down. If you
Yes.
really look at the reason, just deep dive, why is most of them, if you see, are replication. If you
Right.
keep replicating the same thing again and again, it's not going to work. It will have a limited shelf life. But if you're creating something which is out of the box, that has a longevity, that has a longer tenure, and that's where the success will lie.
Very true. I think innovation is the key.
Innovation is the key. Absolutely.
So, I really want to know that which sectors are best to produce breakout startups from Tier 2 and Tier 3 India?
Interesting question. I think let's just look at it. It's like a economy. Okay. When we call startup is an economy, but simultaneously look at the economic cycles, ups and downs. Every sector has an up and down. Startup ecosystem is, no exception. There are pluses and minuses under each sector, and a best example is education. At one point of time, education was a hot sector. People and investors lined up to invest in startups which are in education. Now it's out of flavor. Um, from my perspective, it's going under a consolidation stage. These things will keep happening. The churn will keep happening. I believe something which has a longevity, something which is not dependent on such kind of a sectoral movement or economic churn, something which can continue even at a steady pace, that is perfectly fine. But if it can continue to grow, those are the sectors which will multiply. But simultaneously, you have to keep an eye on upcoming trend. What is going to happen next. Uh, my personal favorite as of today, I can tell you, what was my favorite yesterday and what is my favorite today. I think this will give a perspective. Till yesterday, I was very much bullish about consumer sector. Why consumer sector? Because it is something which is getting sold. You can actually see it, what is getting sold. You can actually count the numbers.
Correct.
That, okay, fine, this is something. But it is overdone. Let me be very blunt with that answer, that it's overdone. You can imagine like a makhana. Makhana is available now in probably 100 different brands. And consumer preferences are changing. They want, every day they want something new. So, which is going to create a implication for consumers. But right now, what is my favorite? I believe my favorite is what even government is, I'm more keen on identify something which is technology driven, but something which is like in a manufacturing side, robotics, biotech, tech is something which I believe. And I have a clear, my own thesis for that. And I'll summarize very quickly, for benefit of everyone. Post independence, we were an agricultural economy,
Yes.
right? We continue to grow, but continue to export. And that's basically more like a raw material. We continue to do that. And not just about agriculture, or every mineral also. For a longer period of time, we used to export iron ore from Goa. Those kind of things. So something which you are giving them as an input material. Low cost, high volume, you are not earning much out of that. Economy opened up. We have taken a shortcut.
Yes.
We have moved towards a service economy, very fast to grow. And we have seen that growth. India is one of the top software exporter in the world, right? But that is service. Technology is there, but that is service.
Service based.
What we have missed out in the entire phase is manufacturing. Imagine a world where we are talking about AI. We are talking about AI, we are talking about ML, we are talking about LLMs. But what does they need to run this kind of a technology are the hardware, a hardcore hardware. Unless and you don't have hardware, it's not going to run. You are wearing an Apple Watch. Apple Watch is a product. The technology running the Apple Watch is a technology. But that technology to run will require some kind of a hardware, which is an Apple Watch.
Yes.
Or which is any kind of a product. My focus is right now on manufacturing. And the other thesis around it is we did have a manufacturing. I'm not doubting that. But our technology is old. There are gaps, there are obvious gaps, and there are obvious improvements which are required. And anyone who's working towards that has a potential to grow from here. Coming few years, I don't want to give like 5 years, 10 years kind of a thing, but coming decades, 2 decades, 3 decades are going to be for people who are actually looking at how to improve manufacturing, because government is also looking at manufacturing. China has obviously, and I'm not again shying away from mentioning that name, China has obviously taken a lead.
Yes.
And it's not just India, but entire world
Is dependent.
is dependent. Now, this kind of a thing, unfortunately, has not translated in India. But do we say that it has not happened, so it cannot happen? No. I'm saying it can certainly happen. You can certainly take a lead. You can certainly grow. So, current favorite is anything which is manufacturing. I see this is a red hot sector, I can say, where I am focusing as an investor.
I mean, when you say manufacturing, that reminds me of the semiconductor chips, which is like really booming, and people are really talking and getting it here in India. So what is your take on that?
So, okay, I think people have misunderstood the whole semiconductor.
Hmm.
Okay, in old days, we used to call it IC chips, your transistor chips. Um as the efficiency moved, as the size went down with a higher efficiency, it was named as a semiconductor chip. But do we really know what is semiconductor? A semiconductor has five verticals or four verticals, I can say, semiconductor starts with design. So somebody who's designing the technology, how it has to function. Somebody who's manufacturing, that once the design is done, then you translate that into a semiconductor chip. Somebody who's cutting and packing it, somebody who's assembling it, and somebody who's testing it. So as I mentioned, there are five different facets. Where you stand in terms of manufacturing is basically the hardcore manufacturing. Do we call NVIDIA a semiconductor manufacturing? The answer is no. While the perception is it's a semiconductor company, but
Exactly. That's
it's a
what we.
semiconductor design company.
Okay.
Once they're designed for manufacturing, they are still dependent on companies like Taiwan Semiconductor. So TSMC, if you really see, is a hardcore manufacturer of semiconductor chips. India is currently lacking that. And as I mentioned, one of the founder and one of my portfolio company is actually getting into it. So I'm really proud of, and I'm really looking forward. Once they kick in and once they start, I think so they have a biggest market in India.
Exactly. Yes.
Tata has already, declared their plan, but the Indian market, which is currently 100% import dependent, there's a huge potential out there. And this is one part, it's semiconductor is one, because right now we see semiconductor as a buzzword. But I'm saying, why only semiconductor? Look at any manufacturing. You look at the whole manufacturing process, identify which are the gaps. Can you do it with some kind of IoT devices, some kind of let's say scanners, some kind of a technology which can actually improve the whole efficiency? You have to look at that. That is going to be the key, and that's where I'm more, keen. I'm more confident about this.
So, coming to my last question, I really wanted to ask you this one, that, what is your boldest prediction for the tier 2 and tier 3 India's ecosystem of startup, and which you think is for the next decade?
Let me couple it with government's vision of making India a 5 trillion or a 10 trillion economy. My prediction is one of the largest contributor who's going to contribute to reaching this goal is going to come from the startup ecosystem emerging from tier 2, tier 3, which is our next Bharat. I think that's my prediction. And I really look forward to it.
Thank you for such lovely insights, Utpal. I mean, I've learned so many things. And of course, even our audience is going to take a lot from this podcast. And I'm looking forward to, all of these insights. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks, Aloni. This was really interesting. As I mentioned, I'm bullish and I'm more and more bullish on, the entire Bharat. I look forward to interacting with more and more startups coming out from, tier 2, tier 3. I look forward to meeting them, understanding them, what they're doing, and try to support as much as I can in their journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.